welcome to today's video. We are doing enclosure reviews, all right? So last time I did this was 2.5 years ago, and the reason why I've been putting these off because last time I did it was really rough. I did 80 enclosures. 80, which is a lot of enclosures. Took me like a whole month to edit the video. A couple weeks after that, I was like totally burnt out. And so I've been a little nervous to do this because I feel so bad when I can't get to every single one of your enclosures. But today we're doing 5 enclosures. I tried to pick a variety of species, a variety of enclosure styles, so we can kind of, go over some of the, common things I see when people build out their enclosures and, give you guys some advice. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So because I'm only doing 5, there is still a big chunk of you who did not get your enclosure reviewed, and I apologize, I'm so sorry. And if anyone's watching this after the submissions have already been closed, don't worry, have no fear, I do offer video calls. So this is not just gonna be an enclosure review, this is gonna be your chameleon care review. When I do those paid video calls, we're going top to bottom. Every single aspect inside of your enclosure, every single aspect about your husbandry in your care. I do offer 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45, and 60 minutes. It's $40 for 30 minutes. If you're wanting a full enclosure review, I suggest doing the 45-minute option. If you're brand new to chameleons, the 60-minute option is really good. The 15-minute one is really only helpful if you're just wanting to know if you have a male or female chameleon, or maybe you're balling on a budget and we can cram in as much as we can in those 15 minutes, but usually the 30-45 minute is the minimum time required to go through everything. So we're not going to be spending a full 30 minutes per one of these enclosures. We're just going to cover as much as we can, and like I said, you can book a video call with me. That's on my website, neptunethechameleon.com, so feel free to take advantage of that. Alright guys, so we have our very first enclosure. So looking at the questionnaire, this is a male panther chameleon. They also have a female panther, a baby piebald veil chameleon, so that's cool to see. They got their chameleon from Petco. He's about 7 months old according to the pet store, and they've had him for about 5 months old. So let's just take a look. This is the chameleon that you're talking about. He's stunning. Stunning. For a Petco chameleon, they don't usually sell panther chameleons, so that's actually really cool. And I love the reds that are in his eye. So I would say he's probably older than 7 months. I mean, he looks near full grown to me, but no way to know unless you hatched him out, so we're guessing. So taking a look at the enclosure. So it's a 2x2x4, which is the appropriate size for a veiled panther and Jackson's chameleon. I think pretty much everyone who submitted an enclosure, I think there was only 1 or 2 that were slightly too small for a chameleon, but you guys are crushing it. Everyone had super great enclosure sizes and UVB. I just want to give a quick shout out. Every single person had a linear UVB bulb. There was only one person who had a T8, everyone else had a T5, and that makes me so excited. So excited, because the last time I did this enclosure review video, it was half of them had compact UVBs, but you guys are nailing it. There was differences as far as strength of UVB, and we can get into that in a little bit, but okay. So looking at this enclosure, okay, so screen, basking temperature is 82 degrees. That's solid. I would say you could probably go up to 85, but 82 is within the appropriate range. Nighttime temperature, 72. That's pretty good. You could do 68 to 72 for a panther chameleon, but I think this is totally fine. What is the daytime humidity on average? Not sure because their thermometer broke. I just have the temp gun. So this is super important that you have a device called a hygrometer, which is what we use to measure the humidity. For a panther chameleon, we're looking for about 50% during the daytime and then 70% or higher at night. So you can get those for a couple bucks off Amazon. I have them linked underneath the shopping list on my website if you need to go grab one. So it doesn't have to be a fancy reptile one. I would recommend the digital hygrometer so that it is more accurate. Okay. Which of the following hydration methods do you use? Select all that apply. Mister, great. They're misting every 3 hours for 30 seconds, but not at night. I was wondering if I should change that to the opposite. So if you're misting every 3 hours for 30 seconds, my guess is you're using something like the Repti Rain or the Monsoon Mister. They're pretty limited as far as how often you can mist your enclosures. The general recommendation is to mist once in the morning before lights turn off and once in the evening after lights turn off. How often you miss though is gonna vary from person to person, which is why I love doing these video calls and these detailed enclosure reviews, because if I could see what your humidity was, which I know yours is broken, that's totally fine, then I could give you custom advice of, hey, your humidity's at 30% when really needs to be to 50%. So instead of doing the 30-second misting, maybe you mist for 2 minutes, right? Increase your misting session duration to get that humidity level where it needs to be. Generally speaking though, we don't want to mist in the middle of the day because we want to avoid hot, humid environments, but your basking temperature is 82. That's not crazy hot or anything, so I think you're doing okay. But I would try and just stick to the 2 misting sessions and do longer durations. The other thing with this is like usually when I do these video calls, I can ask you guys questions, right? But this is obviously a one-sided conversation. So, okay, they're not fogging, but again, we don't know their nighttime humidity, so we don't even know if a fogger is necessary. Okay, what brand of UVB? Reptisun T5 6%. So Reptisun does a 5.0 or a 10.0, and Arcadia does the 6% or 12%. So if it's a Reptisun brand, then this is going to be a 5.0 bulb. So just double check that. What bugs are you feeding your chameleon? Select all that apply. Crickets, hornworms, waxworms, superworms. Okay, so we could probably add in more variety. Let's see how many bugs they're feeding. I feed him crickets that are in his cage whenever he wants them, and I feed him about 5 mealworms every few days. Then I supplement with hornworm treats, and I just did superworms for the first time today. Awesome. So I would say to try and add in some more nutritious bugs. Crickets are great, but I would also add in things like dubia roaches, silkworms, and black soldier fly larvae and feed those on a regular basis. Then mealworms should really be like few and far between. 5 mealworms every few days is not bad by any means, but I would just try and add in more variety. Hornworms are good to try and build trust with your chameleon, and superworms are a great treat. So what are you using to gut load the bugs? I'm not using gut load because I'm unsure what to use, but I do sprinkle his food with calcium. So this is something I saw across a lot of your guys' submissions, is either the lack of gut load entirely or very like minimum gut load realistically. So gut loading is the process of feeding your bugs fresh fruits and vegetables so that they are full of micronutrients, which are then fed to your chameleon. So we've got 2 things: gut loading, which is inside the bug, and then supplements, which are the outside of the bug. So we want to make sure that our gut load is on point, just like with our UVB, just like with a variety of bugs. We need to make sure that the nutrition is good, and this is the fuel for your chameleon. So some easy things that you could use for your gut load would be like mango, sweet potato, collard greens, mustard greens, carrots, apples. Those are all great options just off the top of my head, but I do have an entire video on gut loading, an entire page on my website full of things that you can gut load with. What's been really popular right now is to do dry gut load, which is basically like 15 different ingredients like alfalfa and flaxseed and things that you wouldn't normally probably have in your home. It's all blended up, dried together, and there's a couple different companies that are carrying it. And then you would feed that in addition to your fresh fruits and vegetables and your bee pollen and everything else like that to your chameleon. So hopefully that helps, but I did give you some good resources, so feel free to research some more on gut loading. Okay, the other thing is supplements. I saw a lot of people, they're using supplements, but not correctly. So I'll try through this to like help you guys out, learn more about supplements. So they're using the calcium without vitamin D3 on his mealworms every few days or every other day. Then using the calcium with D3 twice a month, the 1st and the 15th, and then they're not using a multivitamin whatsoever. So generally speaking, we want to be using our calcium without D3 every single time we feed our chameleon, okay? Every single time. And then twice a month, we're gonna be using our multivitamin. Now, if your multivitamin already has D3 in it, say Reptivite with D3, I saw a lot of you guys were using it, that's what I use, then that's all you need, those 2 supplements. Now, this person's using calcium with D3 and no multivitamin. So what you can choose to do is get Reptivite without vitamin D3 and then use that twice a month. But now you're rotating between 3 supplements, which can be a little tricky to keep up with. Not impossible, that's actually how we used to do it a couple years ago. Or you can just scrap that calcium with D3, just go get yourself the Reptivite with D3 and then just use your plain calcium every single feeding and then the Reptivite with D3 twice a month. I know that's a lot. I have all the supplements linked on my website. I have a full video just on supplementation, so I'd encourage you to check that out. And then I added in here, is there anything else I should know about your chameleon or enclosure? They said, so far Leonard seems completely content, happy and healthy, but I'm always looking for improvements. I feel like I need more sticks and more things in the enclosure. And I've noticed that his nails are extremely short. I feel like they've broken off in the mesh. So at times he has trouble climbing on the screens. Any advice on that would be great as well. So let's switch gears for a second here. Let's look at the enclosure itself. So this is the enclosure. You can see the T5 UVB running across, basking bulb. In that back corner, you can see the basking branch. You can see Leonard hanging out, looking super cute. So I see there's quite a lot of fake plants. Where's my drawing tool? I always like drawing on these things. Okay, here we go. Yes, so we've got, this is fake, this is fake, this is fake. The rest of this is live though. Whoop, undo. Yeah, so we want to avoid those. I'd swap those out for live plants, but let's just take a look at branches real quick. So where would I put in more branches? Because the reason why he's likely climbing the screen and ripping out his nails is because he doesn't have a lot of things to climb on. Now the golden rule, any empty space is unused space. So we can see right now, this is all empty, this is pretty empty, this is pretty empty, and there's nothing for him to climb down there because they're just plants. So we need significantly more branches. So the way that I would do this is I would throw in some horizontal branches at first. And I know attaching branches in a screen enclosure can get tricky, so I do have tutorial videos on how to do that, so feel free to check those out. But I would do at least a couple, going through all the different heights down here. Can I move this? Little, haha. Ah, there we go, that's what we need. Okay, a couple of branches down there. Okay, so now we've got our horizontal branches. Now we need our thinner branches. So then I would start going different directions here. Now this looks like it's a lot, that's because it is, but these are how your chameleon climbs around, right? So if you don't have any way for them to get around, yeah, look at all these branches I would put in here. And you could, maybe not that one, because that would be too close to the basking branch. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Like at least 15 more branches, right? And then you would have like main branches going down the sides here. So, but if you just look at this now with all these branches, that is a significant improvement, right? Now if we switch colors here, where would I add in more plants? Then you could do another plant up here, like a nice pothos. I'd replace this stuff up here, maybe with like a philodendron. You could, the plants you have down low are great, just raise them up high, but you can't do that unless you have the branches. Another plant here, another plant here. Down low it looks great, but now if you look at the enclosure, then that is much fuller, and then Leonard will feel safe and secure that he's not climbing everything. So you're in a good starting point, but definitely a lot more work to go. So I'd encourage you to add in some more live plants and branches. Okay, cool. I think that wraps it up for that one. Let's move on to the next enclosure. Okay, so this is the next chameleon that we're doing. We're doing a Jackson's chameleon, which I was so excited to get a submission from a Jackson's chameleon because I feel like I don't talk about them enough on my channel. So thank you so much for doing this. So we've got our Jackson's chameleon, and then this is the enclosure that we're working with. So let's take a look at their questionnaire. Dun, dun, dun. Where did you get your chameleon from? Local reptile breeder, rescue who didn't have any more space. They're 3 years old. They've had them for almost 2 years. XL Reptibreed, so that's the 24 by 48 screen enclosure. Basking temperature of 85, that's solid. Average nighttime temperature, 65. So Jacksons are unique from Veils and Panthers in that they need a significant temperature drop at night. So when I say significant, I'm talking like 55 degrees Fahrenheit, like 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So 65 is on the high end for a Jackson's chameleon. So I would see if you can try and get your temperature down just a little more. If not the end of the world, but we really want to strive to have a significant temperature drop at night. And that's unique to Jackson's chameleons. Daytime humidity, 40 to 50%, that's solid. Nighttime humidity, fogger keeps running, keeps areas higher, 80-ish, that's solid. We're just looking for 70% or higher. So they're using the Mr. Fogger and Dripper for their hydration. Those are all great options. The waterfall option I included, but is not something I recommend, but a lot of new keepers do use waterfalls and aren't aware that those aren't recommended. So that's why it's included in here, but it's not something I recommend. When do you mist your chameleon and for how long? 3 times, 1.5 minutes night, morning, and then 1 minute at 4 p.m. So if I was on a call with this person, I'd ask them, why are you misting at 4 p.m., right? That's while, in theory, while your lights are still on. So I would see if you can try and push that a little bit later, but maybe they have a good reason, right, for why they're doing that. This is why hydrations and like misting schedules are so custom and personal to the person that this is why these video calls are great. So I'm only going off of what I have, and unfortunately I can't ask those questions. Neptune, what are you doing, dude? I'm climbing all over. Oh wait, when do you fog? 15 minutes on, 15 minutes off all night. Their humidity is around 80% at night, so that seems to be working for them. What brand of UVB are you using? An Arcadia T5, 6%. That's exactly what I use, and that's what I would recommend. So that's solid. They're feeding crickets, dubia roaches, superworms, and then isopods that they eat at the bottom because they have a bioactive enclosure, and we'll get into that. So 8 bugs per feeding 3 times a week. I think that's great, especially for an adult chameleon. They should not be eating every single day. But again, how often you feed your chameleon and how much you feed is going to vary chameleon to chameleon, but the general recommendation is 3 to 4 bugs every 2 to 3 days. They're doing a little bit more than that, which is fine because their chameleon looks like to be a really solid weight, not overweight, not underweight, so they found what works for them. What are you using to gut load the bugs? BioDude Bug Grub. So this is what I was saying earlier, those dry gut loads that you can use. So the BioDude, I've used their Bug Grub. I've really liked it. And you can always use code Neptune10 to get 10% off every single order at the BioDude. So please take advantage. I do have this linked on my website. That's that dry gut load that has a bunch of different things mixed into it, which is great. I would also probably add in some fresh fruits and vegetables in addition to just the dry gut load. How often do you use calcium without D3? Every time. How often do you use calcium with D3? Once a month. Multivitamin once a month, and then their multivitamin is Repashy. So I'd be curious if it's the Repashy Calcium Plus or the Repashy Low D. Again, I can only go off of what you guys have in the questionnaire, but that's a question that I have. And if you guys didn't know, Jackson's chameleons have a slightly different supplement schedule than Veils and Panthers. So Jackson's, you only use your multivitamin once a month versus twice a month. Okay, anything else I should know? It's bioactive. It's been established for 3 years now. Mister is a Mist King, Fogger is a Repti Fogger. They use the Earth Pro A for dusting, primarily with the Repashy. And then they have 3D printed ledges to raise up the UV and LEDs to prevent burning. Learned most of this from consulting Chameleon Forums. So Chameleon Forums is actually where I got started, chameleonforums.com. If you haven't checked them out, please do so. They also do enclosure reviews just as a community. So if you don't want to pay for me to do one, you don't want to wait 2.5 years, hopefully I won't wait that long to do another enclosure review video, you can always go to Chameleon Forums, and they're awesome, awesome group of people. And their care is very, very similar to my care, so you won't have any huge differences between the two. So let's look at their enclosure. Again, this is their chameleon, Little Jackson's. He looks fabulous, like really, really good. Okay, so looking at this, so the bioactive bottom is what you're seeing down below. Where's my little drawing tool? Okay, this whole area down here is bioactive. So if you're not going to do a bare bottom with potted live plants, then bioactive would be my next suggestion. And bioactive is when you have the soil, and it's not just annual soil, right? This is a specific soil type, which again, the BioDude carries this. You know, feel free to use my discount code. And it's full of isopods, which is why they're saying that their chameleon will sometimes munch on the isopods. Some chameleons do, some chameleons don't. It's totally fine if they eat them. They're safe bugs for them. And then you can put all the live plants directly in the soil, and so it makes it very naturalistic. This can be hard sometimes to do in a screen enclosure, so the BioDude also sells what they call tree pouches. So that goes into the bottom of the screen, and then you can put all your bioactive dirt and soil in there. I know someone's gonna ask me, why don't I do bioactive enclosures with my chameleons? My crested gecko is bioactive, and the reason for it is because the humidity in here is already pretty high. I would have to invest in a dehumidifier and then consider going bioactive, which I might in the future, just haven't crossed that bridge yet. So the rest of this enclosure looks fabulous. I can see the plant LED and the UVB, and then their heat bulb. Something that I saw as well with a lot of your guys' enclosure was a lot of you aren't using plant LEDs. The plant LEDs are not considered required. They're considered optional because they don't actually benefit your chameleon directly. However, There were so many of your enclosures where the second half of the enclosure was so dark, and I know it can be really difficult to keep plants alive, especially in a 4-foot tall enclosure. So I would really encourage you to get a plant LED, especially if you feel pretty good about how your enclosure is going and your care and everything else. There's tons of different brands. I like the Arcadia Jungle Dawn, the Vivarium Electronics LED bar. I know the Bioduo carries one, Josh's Frogs carries one. So I would encourage you to check those out. But this is great. I'm loving all the branches. I see the little feeder cup in there. Yeah, if anything, I would just maybe try and fill in like this space right here. Otherwise, I think this looks pretty good. So nicely done. All right, moving on to the next one. All right, we've got this Veil Chameleon, and this is the enclosure that we're gonna be talking about. So let's go ahead and move over to their questionnaire. Here we go. What kind of chameleon do you have? Veil Chameleon, where'd you get them from? Pet Supplies Plus, that's their job. How old? 7 months old. How long have you had your chameleon? 3 months. So I think, this is it. Okay, usually 6 days because he's young. So this is actually a female chameleon. So this is something I love doing as well when people DM me asking for help on their chameleon. So because they used he's, I'm assuming they think it's a boy. This is actually a female Veil Chameleon. And I can tell if I zoom in here. Whoop. Small cast size. Can I draw on this? Let's learn together. I do have a whole video on this as well, but if I zoom in, okay, small cask right there. I can tell that's a female. The coloring here, those are female coloration, and then her back foot here. I can't see it, but odds are it's smooth. There's no tarsal spur. But if you see chameleons enough and you do this long enough, you can spot a male and female a mile away. So I knew this was a female chameleon, which is why I wanted to bring this up. There's also this little white speck on their nose. I get questions about that all the time. That's little salt deposits, nothing to be concerned about, but that's something that we'll see in our chameleons sometimes. So congratulations, it's a girl. So just wanted to let you know that that's the case before we dive into this. Okay, so going back to the care. So 2x2x4, you can tell that's the XL Repti screen enclosure. Basking temperature of 80 degrees Fahrenheit. That actually works out great because it's a female Veil Chameleon and females have a basking temperature of 80, whereas the males have a basking temperature around 85. Nighttime temperature is 65, that's perfect. Ah! Drop my pen. Okay, back to business. Daytime humidity on average, 70 to 80%. Now that's high. So for a veiled, we're wanting closer to 40-50% for their humidity. So 70 to 80% is way too high. So then I'm looking at their misting schedule, like everything else in their enclosure to see what could potentially be impacting that. What's the nighttime humidity? 90%. I have a humidifier that goes off with the mister. That's great. But let's see. Mister goes off 3 times a day for 10 seconds. And then, wait, this goes on at the same time? I have a humidifier that goes off with the mister. So if their mister is going off in the daytime, then their humidifier is. And then their fogging, as long as the fogger will go off usually 5 hours on the lowest setting. So this makes me think that they're potentially fogging during the daytime, which would explain why their humidity is so high. Because if you're only misting 3 times a day for 10 seconds, either you live somewhere super humid or something else is going on. So I'm thinking that they're using their fogger throughout the daytime, which is what's causing the levels to be super high. So instead, I would encourage them to not use the fogger during the daytime, just use the fogger at night, and then adjust their misting schedule to try and get that 40 to 50% humidity. This is something we would dive more into if we were on a call, but okay, Repticen T5 5.0, that's perfect. What bugs are you feeding? Crickets, dubia roaches, and superworms. So I hope when people filled this out, they saw that there were a lot more bugs that you could feed to your chameleon. So they're usually doing 6 a day because he's young. So I think that's appropriate. Very soon though, you'll want to cut her back to every other day and then eventually every 2 to 3 days. And then try and add in those different worms. The silkworms, the black soldier fly larvae, I love those. Waxworms, hornworms are a great treat. She's big enough that you could do hornworms if you wanted to. Gut loading with carrots and romaine lettuce. So I love that you're gut loading, but carrots and romaine lettuce are pretty low on the totem pole as far as like nutritional value. Carrots are okay, but romaine lettuce, try instead to use like mustard greens or collard greens and the other things that we've talked about already. Okay, they are using calcium without D3 every day. Love that. Calcium with D3 twice a month, and then the multivitamin once a month. They're using Reptivite. So this is where I would get some clarifying answers if we were chatting, and that is this the Reptivite with D3, without D3, are you using calcium with D3 in addition to the multivitamin? So we've already dived into supplements, so I'll let that, we won't get into it, but that's just something to, for the person who's listening, make sure you're doing your homework on that. Okay, anything else I should know? There's a plants. Don't know what that means. And a giant pothos taking up most of space. There's a big branch filling in the back, and the back is covered with fake vines to make sure no water gets in the outlet. Okay, so let's take a look at the enclosure. Okay, so I first want to call it this red heat bulb because it's not on in this picture. So red heat bulbs are no-go. We do not use red heat bulbs in any circumstances for a chameleon. We use white heat bulbs during the daytime and then all lights off at night. So go replace that right now. I know you work at Pet Supplies Plus. I know you guys sell white heat bulbs, so get yourself one. Your chameleon will thank you. Okay, so with this, I'm loving all of the live plants. I think this is fabulous. Let's do a little doodle here. So one thing that makes me super, super nervous is this right here. Okay, I see this all the time. Attaching your branches to the top of the screen, which means your chameleon can now get to the tippy top. If that was a heat bulb, then they could potentially burn themselves, which is really bad, and then too much UVB. So we really should not be attaching things to the screen, like the top screen. Sides are fine, just not the top. You can see how close she's getting up there. So the live plants you have in here are amazing. We're just missing some branches. I know you said there was a big branch, but I'm seeing like all this empty space, all this empty space. I know what you're saying. It's not empty because there's plants, but it's empty because she can't climb a flimsy little plant like that. It's great for coverage, it's great for hiding, but it's not gonna support her weight. So we need things for her to climb on. So again, we're gonna do our nice horizontal branches across the entire enclosure. Okay, those are good. We're gonna have our anchor branches along the edges here. Then we're gonna go in with our smaller branches and then add those in going more diagonal, maybe some vertical ones, right? You get the idea. Yoop, 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 yoop. And I always like to throw some branches at the bottom because then your chameleon can go down there and cool off. So your plants are fabulous. You just need to add in some more branches. And again, check out my videos on how to attach branches, how to wash branches, all that good stuff, and that'll help you out. Okay, next up, we have this little guy. Look at that veiled chameleon, super cute. This is the enclosure that we're gonna be talking about. And let's pop over to the questionnaire. What kind of chameleon do you have? Veiled chameleon, correct. No, I'm just kidding. Where did you get your chameleon from? Snakes at Sunset. I'm not familiar with that. I do like to ask this question during my video calls because sometimes when people do purchase from Petco and PetSmart and they're dealing with some health issues, I'll encourage them to get a fecal test to, rule that out as, something that could potentially be what's causing the issues. How old is your chameleon? About 8 months. They've had them for 5 months. What size is your enclosure? 4x2x3? Hold on, let's look. No, it's a 4x2x2. I think it's just a typo. Okay. Screen enclosure, basking temperature of 95. Woo! 95 is toasty. It should be 85. I don't know if that's also a typo, but I do know back in the day, veils used to be kept at 90-95, so I would not be surprised if that was the actual basking temperature, but we need to drop that way down. So I'm looking, they're using a 50-watt heat bulb. So 50 watts, pretty low. So then the next thing I'm looking at is their basking branch, which is pretty far away from that. So I'm wondering how on earth are you getting a basking temperature of 95 with a 50-watt heat bulb? Something, the math isn't mathin'. So I would ask follow-up questions to figure out what's going on if we were on the video call. But yeah, too toasty, should be closer to 85. Nighttime temperature is 62, fabulous. Daytime humidity, 35 to 40% up top, but sometimes it gets to the 50s towards the bottom. I use a dehumidifier and a fan to lower it but my area's natural humidity is really high sometimes. So this is the other thing, is your misting schedule is going to be so dependent on where you live. If you live somewhere super, super dry, you're going to be using your fogger, your humidifier, your misters, like you're going to be working with everything you possibly can. Versus if you live somewhere super humid, then maybe you're only misting once a day and you're not even using a fogger. So it's really difficult for me to give, recommendations sometimes for people because it's so personalized and so custom, which is why I think it's great that you can get individual feedback on your setup, because it does vary from person to person. So they're doing what they can. Their levels sound good. Nighttime humidity of 80%. That's great. Yeah, so they're only using a mister. They're not even using a fogger, which is fine because their levels are where they need to be. Miss at night for about a minute. I don't miss in the morning since my natural humidity. See, that was exactly what I was saying. They only miss once a day. That's all you need. Okay, ReptiSun T5 5.0. Love to see it. What bugs are you feeding? Crickets, dubia roaches, hornworms, black soldier fly larvae, and waxworms. Great variety. They're feeding 10 to 15 every day. He usually finishes all his dubia since their masters have plain dead. So I always add in extras in hopes they'll move around. Yep, that's the pro tip. If your chameleon is not eating your dubia roaches, throw more in there. They need to be running around so they grab the attention of your chameleon. I would say at 8 months old, this would be an appropriate time to start cutting back his food just a little bit. Yeah, 8 months old. Just cut back a little bit. So then, you're weaning him off, maybe like 10 bugs and then every other day. So then when he's about a year old, he's still maintaining a healthy weight. He looks great from the picture. I just want to put that out there for future. What are you using to gut load? Carrots, collard greens, and sometimes sweet potato. Fabulous. I would say at this point, this person's care is like pretty on point. So I would try and encourage them to do things that are a little bit more advanced with chameleon care, such as adding in powdered bee pollen into your gut load. So this is something that you can buy off Amazon. The BioDude carries it. Some other places I think carry it. They're all linked on my website, but you can put in some powdered bee pollen into your gut load and then the bugs can munch on that, and that's considered a superfood and a really great way to kind of elevate your gut load. Using calcium without D3 every day, calcium with D3 the 14th and 20th, and then it looks like the ReptiVite already has the D3 in it, so they're using it 2 times a month, which is textbook, exactly what you should be doing. Is there anything else I should know? There's a tiny pothos at the top right that used to be bigger, but he loves to chomp the stems. So I'm currently on the hunt for a viney pothos to fill it out over there. Cool, let's take a look at their enclosure. So I would say this is probably on average what I see for most enclosures that people send to me. I can tell they watch my videos, I can tell they've done their research, I can tell they put in a lot of time and money into their enclosures, and I would say this is like an A- enclosure. So then I'll do these video calls and like, hey, this is how we can take it to the A+, right? That next level, like adding in the bee pollen, right? So if I was looking at this enclosure, some things I would do differently. Where's my little drawing button? So I would try and figure out what's going on with that basking temperature, because there's a lot of space in here that seems to be unused. So I would try and figure out what's going on there. But then there's some thicker branches in here, but I would also add in like another branch here. And then this whole section, while I'm loving the plants, there's just no branches. I mean, there's a little one here, but not really many branches for him to be able to climb down there. So then I would do another branch like here, another branch here, maybe here, something like that. I don't know. And then you could do like another branch here, a branch coming here. The back looks good. Yeah, and then those plants, they said that they're gonna try and add in, I think it's this one right here that's getting munched on. So ideally you would try and fill in this space with some live plants. So this is really, really good. Okay, really good. I'm just giving suggestions that you just fine tune it just a little bit, so then you can take your care from that A- to that A+. So like the basking temperature, the branches, the bee pollen, things like that. And then I would also encourage you to get a plant LED to help your plants out a little bit. So cool. And then one thing we haven't talked about yet is making sure that your enclosure is up off the ground. It's hard for me to tell in some of these pictures. I know some of them people included the table that they're on. So just make sure your enclosure is up off the ground at least a foot or two, so your chameleon is up high and feels safe. Next one is this little panther chameleon. Oh my gosh, look at those reds. Fabulous. I love it. Okay, and this is the enclosure that we are talking about. This is wild. Look at all these little squiggly branches. Oh, croton plant down there. I love it. I just ordered like I kid you not, 15 plants off the bio, dude, because I am like looking back at my enclosures and some plants have died, RIP. So I'm like, all right, it's time for a new plant refresh. So I'll do a video for you guys unboxing that. And I tried to get some new plants that I haven't used before to give you guys some ideas and suggestions on, you know, what you can use. But that's coming next because we got to do some work on our own enclosure, making sure that those empty spaces are all filled out. Super important. Okay, we are looking at this Panther Chameleon. Yep, local breeder, 5 months old. Totally agree with that. Little squirt. My first chameleon ever. I've had him 2 months now. Congratulations. Very exciting. Okay, what is your enclosure? DIY. Okay, this is not from the US because these are in meters. What is this? 1.8 meters? How many meters are in a 0.8? Sorry, we're trying to translate this. 70 inches. Okay. Oh, wow. This is a pretty big enclosure then. Dang, this is huge. I love this. Can you make me one? This is the thing, like I would love to have bigger enclosures. It's just so difficult with what we have commercially available. So I think this is fabulous. Okay, so this is a hybrid. So this is the first hybrid enclosure that we're talking about. So a lot of you guys also had hybrids. I would say probably like 30% of you had hybrid enclosures, and then the rest of you had screen enclosures. So I wanted to make sure we included at least one. Oh, thank you. You put Fahrenheit. Love you. Okay, so 88 degrees Fahrenheit, smidge warm, not crazy, but again, we're looking for 85 degrees Fahrenheit. I think that's around 31 degrees Celsius. I don't know, don't quote me on that. Average nighttime temperature, 62 to 68. That is fabulous. Love that. Daytime humidity, 40-60%. That's textbook. Nighttime humidity, 80 to 95%. That's textbook. Using a mister and dripper. Misting 3 times a night for 45 seconds. Wow, they're not even misting in the morning. That's great. No, your levels are fabulous. So if you do live somewhere where it's dry and you are struggling with your humidity, then a hybrid enclosure is a really, really good option because it does help hold in that moisture. If you do have a screen enclosure, don't worry. You can just, wrap the sides with a shower curtain, or I use the cool backgrounds from petbackdrops.com. Code Neptune10 saves you 10% off. So whatever you need to do to kind of help hold in that moisture, just make sure you still have enough airflow in the enclosure. Okay. What kind of UVB? An Arcadia, and they're using a T5 6%. So I think that's great for your enclosure. One thing we haven't talked about, some of you were using 10.0 and 12%. So I think that's worth mentioning. So with a 48-inch tall enclosure, so 4 feet, which is what most people are using for their chameleons because that's what we have available to us. The recommendation is to use the Reptisun 5.0 or the Arcadia 6%, unless you own a solar meter, which is a device used to measure the UVI output of your enclosure. Then you could get away with using the Reptisun 10.0 or the 12%. But I would only say that if you have the solar meter, because like we don't want to be giving too much UVB. Like we don't have too little, but we also don't want to have too much. So I don't want to get into it too much in this video because again, it's not the purpose of it, but I do want to encourage you, go check out ChameleonAcademy.com because it has this really fabulous chart where it shows the different UVI outputs of the different bulbs, and you'll see the difference between the 5.0 and the 10.0. So, okay, enough of that. So they're feeding crickets, dubia roaches, box soldier fly larvae, desert locust, and oh gosh, this is a scientific name. Shepherdella lateralis. That's a bug. I don't know what that is. But I did include locust as an option because I know a lot of my UK, European viewers and friends and stuff will feed locusts. So I wanted to make sure I include that as an option. But I love the variety. Yeah, you could probably add in some tree bugs if you want. He's only 5 months old. Let's see. Right now, 5 to 10 bugs. Depends on bug size, 6 days per week. That's great. You could do 7 days a week. He's only 5 months old. So he's growing, so offer him as much as he's willing and wanting to eat. If that's 5 bugs, great. If that's 15 bugs, that's cool too. What are you using to gut load with? Carrots, salad, cucumber, sweet potatoes, zucchini, tomatoes, fresh herbs, oat flakes, fish flakes. Okay, this is another reason why I wanted to include this exact care in this video, because I wanted to touch on this. So I love the variety that you've put into your gut load, but just like how I was saying, like too much UVB can be harmful. Like we can't just gut load with anything and everything that we want. For example, tomatoes are toxic, straight up. Tomatoes are toxic for reptiles, so we do not ever, ever, ever gut load with tomatoes. Cucumbers are mostly water, so the nutritional value of a cucumber is pretty low, and we definitely don't want to be gut loading with things like oat flakes or fish flakes. We want the things that have high nutritional value, so oat flakes and fish flakes are not something that's recommended to use for gut load for your chameleons. The rest of it sounds good. The zucchini is good, sweet potatoes, carrots, salad is vague. I don't know what's included in that. And again, we've talked about gut load a few times, but I just wanted to call out some things that are not recommended and things that I would stop using. Okay, they're using the Arcadia Earth Pro A as their primary supplement for every single feeding. That's great. They're using their multivitamin 2 times a month. The Zoom In Reptivite with D3. Fabulous. Love it. Love, love, love. Oh, there's a lot of info in here. Okay. DIY enclosure with drainage system, custom background, DIY trees, glass door, UVI is around 4 to 6 at basking spots. So they have a solar meter. This is what I'm talking about. They're such a worthwhile investment. I know they're expensive. They're like $200, but I promise you, if you can work it into your budget, they are so worth getting. Definitely look into it. This is right after I planted the plants. They've grown a bit. Sounds good, but I'll add in some more plants to fill in the gaps for more hiding and climbing. Love to hear it. I got my male panther, named him Neo. After 2 months, we already have a good bond. Lucky you, because Neptune tries to eat me and Venus is scared of me. Luna's chill. She'll hang out with me, but Neptune and Venus don't do that. He's really tame, gentle, active inside his enclosure, not really shy at all, and eats well. Yay! Thank you for all your videos and tips. You've helped me a lot as a chameleon beginner. Greetings from Germany. Well, thank you so much for that sweet message. That was great. So let's take a look at the enclosure here. So my rule of thumb is it should be difficult to find your chameleon. You should be across the room and have a hard time spotting them. I don't even know if their chameleon is in here. I don't think they are, but that's the point. We want to make it very difficult. So I'm loving the squiggly branches in the live plants and everything like that. And I can't wait to see what this looks like once your live plants have grown in, because I know a lot of these are smaller plants. I can see that in here. And then this looks like it's, did they say it was bioactive? Doesn't say it. But I believe this is bioactive. I guess that's something I should have included in the questionnaire. But again, if we were on a video call, then I would, I'd ask you. So I think this is great. I'm super excited. I'm sure Neo is loving this. If anything, maybe you could remove some of the branches as he gets older, because he'll get bigger. And so then some of the branches will kind of get in his way. So maybe remove a couple of branches. I know, crazy for me to say that, but then you can throw in some plants. But I think this is really cool. I love the dimensions and everything else. So yeah, I think that's the last one. Yeah, so then I had on my notes that I wrote some things that I wanted to touch on for like everyone who's listening. So the No Planet LED, let's see, we talked about that. So the only thing that we haven't talked about is too thick of branches. So remember, chameleon feet are tiny, they're itty bitty, so we want to make sure that they can grip around the branches. A lot of you guys were using pretty thick branches, which I love to see it, but instead of using those, I would use thinner branches. So take out your thicker branches, replace them with thinner branches, and odds are you would add in like 3 thinner branches in the space that you would use for a thicker branch. So that'll give your chameleon more variety, more things to climb on. So yeah, I think that wraps it up. I have no idea how long this video is. I want to give a huge shout out to my editor for editing this video, because as someone who has done multiple of these videos, I know how much time and work goes into it. So thank you so much for helping me out with this. But if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Leave any questions or comments down below. Feel free to subscribe so you know when I post a new video. You follow Neptune and all my chameleons on social media at Neptune the Chameleon. Again, if you want to book a video call with me, please do so over at my website, neptunethechameleon.com. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! What does it say? I was normal 3 chameleons ago. Very true. Very true. Look at it. I feel like I'm rambling.